Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm going to give you a quick disclaimer. This video is going to be a troubleshooting video of my process to try to eliminate the headstock noise that I've been having in this lathe. Many of you have probably realized or recognized in some of the videos there's some rumbling and some different noises. So throughout this video, you're going to see me working with the headstock and trying to identify where those noises are coming from. And hopefully at the end of this video, we're going to resolve it. Originally, I thought it was the headstock bearings for the spindle bore. I'm not so sure now. I thought then maybe it was the gears. Now I know the gears are making some noise, but now I'm thinking it's one of the other pulleys and systems in here. So just give you a disclaimer. This video is going to start off thinking it's one thing. It's probably going to end up being something else. But I hope you enjoy me troubleshooting and hopefully resolving this headstock noise. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Deez. This is my workshop. Today, this is something I've been postponing and putting off for a long time. We're going to start tearing into this headstock. The headstock bearings, I'm pretty sure, are shot. This lathe is making a lot of strange noises, and it's time that we identify what it is and try to figure out how to repair it. Never replaced bearings or any of that before, so this is going to be an adventure for me. We need to tear into this thing and try to resolve that problem. If we get this thing spinning at a low RPM, you can hear it. You kind of hear the clunking. I don't know if you can hear it from over there, but you've seen it in several of my videos. It's just got problems. So it's time that we tear into this thing, find out what's going on with it. I'm going to have to order parts, and I may have to get a bearing puller and maybe a bearing seat tool. I don't know what I'm going to need. First thing we need to do is identify and confirm it's the bearings, and then start pulling this thing apart and seeing what we need. If we ruin it, we ruin it. I don't plan on it. I'm hoping that we fix this thing and make it as usable as it was when I first got it. I doubt these things are the highest quality bearings to begin with, but regardless, they need addressed, and I need to get on with it. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Turn this on and I'll show you what this thing sounds like. They just aren't good. You get them going at a high RPM, they're not as bad. Seems to do a little better in reverse. No, it doesn't. I think the first thing I'm going to do is take the chuck off, and then we'll get the side panel off and just start disassembling this. Let me put you at a different angle so I can get access to everything, and we'll keep going. There's our chuck. I needed to take that out anyway, clean out some of the chips that have been jammed in here. We'll do that after a bit. Now we'll set that aside, and I'll bring you over here because we're going to have to make some. I'm going to have to take this back shield off. Whoops. There's a bearing cover here. Let's see if you can see that. Kind of right back in here. The splash guard, the shield covers that, so I need to take this off next. I'm gonna go ahead and do that and see if I can match in here so you can watch that. All right, let's see. Might fit. Conveniently, the screw that they have for mounting that goes through the mounting plate. It's actually quite more well thought out than anything else on this lathe. There's one screw there. There's one back here. I don't know if there's one down here. Might just be the... Oh, there's one down here too. Might just be the 3. There's one, and then there's one back here. There we go. I think that is it. There we go. Got a little bit of dirt and debris here to clean up. We'll set this aside. So we got that done. Now, got chips on the motor. And now I've got access to all of that. Motor included. And yeah, I'll get you a look inside on the back side before we go any further, just for your curiosity. See if you can see that. You can see back there. There's the motor. This is where the splash shield would be, chip guard, and you know, of course, I got metal shavings and other junk on this motor. I don't think the motor's bad. It's that's the gears, but I'm gonna take the gears off next. We're gonna take the side panel off. We're gonna take the side panel off, and then we'll take the gears out, or get them moved out of the way, and then we'll see if this is still making some noises. Let's take the banjo. Of course, loosen that up, and this gear assembly will just rock out of the way. The next thing I want to do, I want to take this belt off here, and I want to see if, I want to spin this and see if the noise is in the motor, or if the noise is in the headstock. Before we change anything, this is disengaged. Let's see if the noise is still there, or if it's in the gears. Maybe we don't have a problem at all up here. Let's see. Well, we might be getting off lucky. It might not be that at all. It might be this whole gear assembly. They're just too loose down here. Well, that might be a far better way to fix this. Let me do some investigating here, but I think we may just have got off easy. This here is running quite smooth. I don't know. I'm not going to change these bearings out. I think actually it's this gear assembly. That's good news for me. I'm going to fiddle around with this and see if I can shore this up. Basically, you've seen me do this on previous videos. But what you do is you loosen these screws, and you want to use a piece of paper or cardstock or some sort. You want a little bit of play, but this is probably just too much play. And so we're getting rattling noises and all kinds of stuff. You don't want them too tight either, because if they're too tight, then they're going to be causing binding up issues and things like that. So it's kind of a fine line of figuring out where that should be. But regardless, that's good news. Yeah, so I believe this is good news for me. I think this is going to be an easier fix. I think it's just this gear assembly that's rattling, causing all kinds of noises. The motor and the headstock does not actually seem to be binding up or causing problems. So this is what I'm going to focus on. You've seen me do it in the past. I'm going to do it off camera. There's just really no sense to record it. All I'm going to be doing is loosening these nuts and sliding them up and down and trying to tighten this assembly up. I may even put a spacer in one of these so it's not wobbling so much. But it needs to spin freely. But I'd like to see if I can take some of that play out. That's what I'm going to do. I'll bring you back once I have this a little tightened up, and then we'll do some more testing with the noises. Like I said, I'm not going to lie to you, it's hot. But regardless, there's just going to be some gear noise with this thing. It's not the bearings, as far as I can tell. It's the gears. And if they're too tight, they make a lot of noise, and if they're a little loose, they make a lot of noise. But I've been fiddling with this, and I think I got it to where I want it. I'm going to put some grease on here to see if that quiets it down. I'm pretty sure it will, but here's what we got. That's with basically no grease. But all the clunking and the bearing noise, I think it's just these gears moving around. And they can't be too tight because they have to spin on this shaft. So they have to have some play in them. It's just how it is. So next thing we're going to do is get some grease on here and see if that quiets it down. We'll put this thing back together. Let's just get some of this grease out of here and just start smearing it. I've already got grease all over my hands, so I'm just going to get it in here, get it into all the teeth as best I can, even up here. Right here. There's still a little bit of gear noise, but overall, I try to improve that a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay, it's been a few days. I gave up the other night working on this. It was incredibly hot out here. Couldn't take it anymore, so I just had to stop. I think I have the gear noise for this kind of sorted. I might adjust these a little bit more. These are metal and metal gears. The grease does help with some of that noise. Grab a glove. At first I was thinking it was the headstock spindle bore, but not so sure now. Let me give this a quick spin here. Not so bad. I got my play in there that I need. Not too worried about that. We can always tweak and adjust that. I kind of wish I didn't grease them quite yet, but at this point I don't want to take that grease off. The next thing I want to do, though, I'm thinking that maybe it's this pulley and maybe a bearing in here. So I'm not sure to take these off if I need to take the pulley off. What I would like to do is take this belt off and leave the pulley and everything and then try to isolate it. Because if I turn this on, let me get this glove off of here. So if I turn this on, you're going to hear noises. And I had a video clip from a phone that we got, from my phone. I got closer and you can kind of hear that it's coming from here. I was wrong. There's definitely something going on here. but it may not be the headstock, the bearings in the spindle bore in the headstock. It might be back here. So I'm gonna keep tearing into it. There is gear noise, but that's only part of the problem. I think there's something in here. I'm gonna take this belt off first, and then we'll see if the noise stays or stops. So let's turn this on one more time and listen to it. And after it sits, it's not so bad, but you can hear it kind of grinding. I think these bearings are bad. So that's what we're going to dive into. There's an I don't know how to get into this thing. There is an adjustment screw here I was messing with. Maybe I shouldn't have touched that, but it does seem to affect this pulley position. I'm sure that's to just get everything tight and the way it needs to be, but I'd love to get this. I was hoping that would loosen it up, but with that said, let's just get back into this thing and see if we can tear into this deeper. I'm going to try to roll this off of here so we can continue our troubleshooting. There we go. I think that'll work. There we go. So there's the pulley that drives the main spindle bore. Now I should be able to spin this and we can listen and see if there's any noise with that. It's not loose. I really don't think it's that. I mean, it's not totally free where I can just zip it around, but I don't think it's that. Let's run this and see if the noise is still in here. There it is. So we're getting closer. It's not the spindle bore. That's good news for me. I didn't want to tear those bearings out if I didn't have to. I really think it's this. So the next step is to take this one off, and if this spins without any noise, then I think we're finally at that. And I'll take the snap ring out and we'll start tearing into this and seeing what's going on. So here's the outside. They're probably the same size, but there's the outside belt. Let's get this one off of here. Might be easier if I take this off as well. There we go. Alright, got that out of there. Well, this is a good opportunity to clean these belts up too. I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of pull it and rock it off of there. We got that off of there. That needed cleaned anyway. So this one's the inside bottom one. Top one, bottom one. I don't know if they're the same. They are the same, but I'll still keep them separate. And let's go ahead and spin this. I don't expect this thing to make much noise at all. Little squeak. There's a bearing down in there. I suppose, you know, that's something. But I think this one, I think that's the issue. Let's go ahead and get this thing out of here, see what's going on. I don't know if that should be wobbling like that. Maybe it needs a bushing, or maybe that bearing is shot. I'm not sure what's in there. Never taken one of these apart. Let's see what's going on here. So this is what we're after, trying to get that snap ring out of there. But if you look, this whole thing's wobbly. I don't think it's supposed to be that way. I think that's where our noises are coming from. This other pulley down here is not. It's a little squeaky. That's the motor. But I want to get this off, so we're going to use the snap ring pliers to take that out. Let me get my snap ring pliers. Let's take this thing out. Maybe this one. See if that one works. All right. That on there. This slides back down through. These are just a cheapo set. Snap ring pliers. All right, let's see if we can get that out of there. There we go. There's our snap ring. Put that up here. And that pulley should come out of there. I hope. There we are. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, it's a bearing. But why is that thing so loose? Yeah. I don't think it's supposed to be loose in there. Let's take that out. That's got a snap ring as well. Of course, that's the opposite snap ring. And that one comes out of there like that. Clean it. There's the bearing. It should come out of there. There's no snap ring. It is pressed in. I'll have to figure this one out. I think it's time to take it over to the workbench over and do a little closer evaluation. But this is what I think is causing our issues. This bearing on this shaft here. It's loose. I don't think it should be. I think maybe I'll try a socket first. Appears to be a press fit, but I might be able to use a socket, 2 sockets maybe, a large one and a smaller one, and press this out with a vise. Let's try to tap it out of there with a socket first. There's an inner race and an outer race. I want to make sure I press on the outside. There we go. If we were to put this down here, that should capture it. If the camera jumps, I apologize. Oh. Okay, that was the bearing. That's okay. I gotta get something to push on those. Okay, it's all right. We're gonna replace it anyway. Let me get a punch. I got a bigger socket here. We about have this out. You can see I've been chipping away at it. I destroyed the bearing to get it out of here, but that's okay, because I'm quite sure that it is part of my issue. Let's see this side here. We'll get this out of here and then we'll see what it is. So it's a double bearing. There's one. Here's the other one. That's good, I suppose, because I need to know what they are. Getting them out of there is a little tricky. Alright, come back over here. Getting close. There we are. All right, we got the bearings out of there. This one you can see I kind of damaged. I didn't realize there were two, and I thought I didn't realize, well, it doesn't matter, I'm going to replace it. But the way that it looked in there, I thought maybe there was a sleeve and then I could press on that. So this is a good example of why you don't press on the bearing side of anything. So this bearing is destroyed, but that's okay. It does have marking on it that we can reference. I can also measure them. I know I'm going to need two of them, unless they make a larger one, but I think the point is to have two. And at this point, I'm ready to kind of research what I need to replace it. I'll have to do some ordering. Yeah, there's part number on there. Part number on both of them. I'll bring you in a little bit closer. As you can see, I destroyed this one. We will have to replace these bearings, but I intended on doing that anyway. The number on there is either a 608Z or a Z809. I'll do some looking up on those. I can also measure them to reference that as well. Both of them. This one seems okay, but I'm going to replace them both since I've got them out of there. That thing should not have been moving around, but maybe it's just the design. Who knows? But I did get it out of there. I got some cleaning up to do, make sure I didn't put any burrs inside here while I was trying to get that out. I'm sure I got a little bit, but I can clean that up. Sorry. But there's your pulley. Other than, I mean, I guess with these grooves you could still make it. This looks like a part you could make in your lathe if you ever had to. Press fit for the bearings. I'll get this thing cleaned up and degreased before we put bearings back in, but it'll just be a simple press fit back in there. I think I'll use the vise for that though, with a socket that's the size to push on the outside race, and I'll just push them both in that way. And that way I don't damage the new bearings when I get them. So I'm gonna do some research, figure out what kind of bearings I should get a couple of them, and get them back in there, and hopefully it's a little tighter. I may do some measuring on the inner race because it was moving. Maybe there should be a different size inside. I don't know. I've never done bearings before. Maybe everybody has some advice, but hopefully this is fixed and complete by the time this video comes out. I'm going to do some ordering, and I'll bring you back when I have it. Continuing the troubleshooting saga, I was just messing with this mechanism here. There's an adjustment screw of some sort and a little block here that goes in and out. I'm not exactly sure what that does. I'm trying to figure that out. But while I was doing that, I was like, okay, well, does this thing tighten up and loosen? I don't know what that thing does. So I got my screw, or my wrench, and I'm on here, and all this, watch this. I'm working on this, I crank on it. Look at that. This whole plate is loose. These guys are loose. I cannot believe that. So maybe that's part of the problem with the noises. This whole plate, see how it moves? That's the motor. The motor is mounted to that. That's gotta not help with the noises. So I guess if there's a moral to be learned here, if you get one of these, check every nut, bolt, screw, anything you got in this lathe, and tighten that sucker down. So I will tighten all of these down when I reassemble. I'm still waiting on my bearings, but I just wanted to give an update that these things are loose. Crazy. So we'll get all that stuff shored up. I don't really want to tighten too many things down until we get the belts back on, but I just want to give you an update. I'm still going to play with this and figure out this mechanism. It feels like this bolt surely would loosen up and I could take that thing off. But again, there is this adjustment mechanism, trying to sort that out. Interesting. But I wanted to share, give you an update. These things are loose. I gotta definitely sort that out. This plate should not be moving around. I decided I'm gonna go ahead and take this plate off of here, and this is a tensioner adjustment mechanism, and this is tight. I kind of feel like there's a nut on the back side that's spinning and not allowing me to tighten or loosen this. I don't know how this tensioner is supposed to work if you can't slide it in and out and provide tension. So I want to take this plate off since it's loose anyway. I believe there's just the two cap head screws holding it in. So I'm going to unhook those. I did take the RPM gauge off. I'm going to see if I can somehow finagle this thing out of here and maybe put it on the bench and just take a closer look. Plus, maybe I'll be able to address that little squeak somehow. Not sure, but I'm this far into it, I might as well take it off and take a closer look. So I'm just going to clean this up. I do have a lot of access in here. See if I can show you some of that. Now I can kind of clean that oil up. Kind of a mess down in there where the motor, underneath where the motor was. But there is a squeak on here, so I want to take this motor off of this bracket down here and just see, I don't know, if there's a bearing that I could replace on that, maybe I will. Maybe it's the same skateboard. By the way, these are just standard skateboard bearings so far. You can get them on Amazon for very cheap. Very common. So that's fortunate, I suppose. But anyway, I got it this far. I might as well see if I can fix, pinpoint this squeak and fix that too while I'm at it. I'm waiting on the parts anyway. So just to give you an update, I can always take this out and take this farther apart if I need to. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can work with it over here on the side, and I'll bring you back when I have something to show you. I'm gonna bring you back here. We've got this plate off. I'm not disconnecting wires or anything. I'm just trying to take it slow. I've got things cleaned up. And if you remember in a previous clip, there was a little squeak with the motor. And so I took it off. I thought, well, let me see if there's a bearing I can replace in here. They might be the same bearings that I'm getting a 10-pack of. So I went ahead and took this off, and I thought, let me investigate that. I turned this over, put a little oil on the back side. That didn't seem to help the squeak at all. So I took it off, cleaned all this up. I mean, it still needs a little more cleaning. I still haven't messed with this adjustment mechanism yet, but I'm just kind of taking it slow, trying to figure all this out. And I thought, okay, let me go ahead and plug this thing in while it's sitting here, because it's just going to spin the motor. And you know, I don't recommend you do this unless you really know what you're doing. Don't turn this thing on when it's in this state, but there's no belt or anything to turn the dangerous components. It's just a motor. So I thought, let me turn it on and see if we get any of that squeaking, so I can pinpoint where it is. And the squeaking is gone. So perhaps the bearing, because I thought that the squeaking was towards the back end of this motor. I put a little oil on there. I'm wondering if that was a bearing that's squeaking and perhaps it needs replaced. But right now, that squeaking is gone. But now I know, I'm going to unplug this just to be safe. But now I know if I ever need to replace this motor, I can get one. I'm going to take some pictures of it, and you know, if I ever need a replacement motor, it's really not that difficult to take apart and replace. There's a connector up here for the switch, but you know, you can adapt that. It just needs to be the right size motor for the board and everything, so you don't burn anything up. But otherwise, I'm not getting that squeak now. So I'm really wondering, when I had it like this and I put oil back here, it may have seeped down into that bearing and eliminated that. Now, I may take this back plate off. Actually, the brushes are here. I'm not going to mess with that, but I know I'm going to keep an eye on that. It's possible that this bearing is going bad eventually and causing a little squeak. I'm not too worried about it at the moment. For now, I'm just going to put a little more oil in there and let it seep in again and put this thing back together, and still, while I'm waiting on my bearings to fix the other pulley, which mounts to this adjustment mechanism here. So just want to give you an update. I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back on. Actually, I may mess with this first, and then we'll put this thing back on while we're waiting. Well, I might as well share this too. If anybody has a mini lathe and they're curious to get inside one of these things, here is that adjustment mechanism. I just loosened that up. As I suspected, that was in fact loose, but I couldn't get it loose. This nut was just spinning on the back. Now, before I took that off, I did put some scribe marks where it was, in case I need to kind of want to line it back up to where it was. But I think the idea, though, this is the part, the idea is that you can adjust this thing in and out using, there's this screw mechanism here. There's a long cap head screw that goes into here and is supposed to adjust that in and out, and it couldn't move at all the way that it was torqued down. So just wanted to put this back together. Okay, so that holds it in place, allows it to spin. Okay, I see how that works. It's just if you loosen it up, it should be able to slide that in and out to where the pulley is where it needs to be. Yeah, that makes sense. So as you tighten this in and out, this would be about like that, as if it's mounted up here. You tighten this in and out, it allows this to rotate, because you're trying to get the pulley tight once you have both belts on. It's a belt tensioner, so it can move up and down and in and out. It's a simple mechanism, but it works. Makes sense. It was just too tight. I couldn't loosen this once I had it where I wanted it in order to bring this in and out. So that makes a lot more sense the way that is. Okay. Just thought I would share that as well. So if anybody's tearing these things apart, this style of mini lathe, there's your components. It's really not that difficult to get into. Pretty interesting. It's kind of a simple machine if you really start looking at it and tearing into it. Let's get a couple of these pulleys cleaned up while we're waiting. Again, we're waiting on the parts. Something I did, I was just checking the old bearings. And if you remember in a clip prior to this, when the pulley was mounted on the lathe, I was able to move this thing and wobble it on that shaft. So I put this over on the shaft where it will eventually go when I have the replacements, and there is a little bit of play in this bearing, and I got a little rod here that you can't see it, but you can feel movement between the inner race and the outer race in this bearing. So I'm really hoping that that is the source of all the problems and the noises, and that a couple new bearings is going to take care of that. I destroyed this one when I was taking it out, so I can't really compare if it was bad, but I assume it was. Doesn't matter, I'm getting new ones. But anyway, I think that is the source of the wobble. I hope. They were in here tight. They weren't loose inside this pulley. So I'm kind of thinking that that's the issue. But now, since we're waiting, I want to go ahead and use some degreaser and clean up these pulleys, get some of that oil and grease from the years off of them, and then let them dry, and we'll get our new pulleys, or bearings. Let's start with this little one. This is the pulley for the motor. Just squirt it down, and I'll rinse it with water to get the degreaser off. That would be different. If we have to machine a new one of these, that'd be difficult, because you got to get in here with an inside boring bar to cut that groove for the C-clip. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure this is not bad, but we definitely want to check it out and make sure it's still good to go. It's a lot better. I'm going to go rinse this off with some water and let these two pulleys dry. Get that degreaser off of there. And if there's any other parts, we'll get those cleaned up too. We received our new replacement bearings. Funny enough, these are standard bearings. They are roller skate bearings, skateboard bearings, roller skate bearings. They're pretty common and they're very cheap. I'm sure there are grades, better grades of these things, but I just went with what the thing had originally, and I bought a tube of them for 10 bucks, buck a piece basically. There's 10 of them in here. I don't need 10, but that's what we got. But we have our replacement bearings. We need 2 of them. There's the bad one. And we need to get the replacement bearings into this pulley. And they were just pressed in like that. So hopefully this takes care of everything once I get them in there, and our issues are going to be resolved. But we don't know. We've got to work through it. There's a little dust in that one. So that's the next steps, is we want to get these bearings pressed into this pulley. The other thing I did, I showed you a clip right before this one. I took the motor off and had a little squeak. I put some oil in the back end of it. To be honest, I think the oil did seep down into the back bearing, and the squeak kind of has gone away. So I think that's going to take care of that. So really we've got 3 issues to address. One was the play that this had on that shaft. The second one was a little bit of a minor squeak in the motor. I think we got that going for now, and that might need a bearing someday or a new motor. And finally is that mounting plate was loose. So we're going to get all those things addressed, and hopefully that takes care of all the problems we've had. I think what I'm going to do first is get the mounting plate put back on, put the pulley for the motor back on, and just get that assembly put back in before we mess with the new bearings and this pulley. So the first thing I want to do is get all this stuff put back in here, and then we'll come back to the pulley. The motor isn't really squeaking much anymore, but I want to get this assembly put back on here. The trick is going to be this adjustment piece. And the way that works, I find some tools. The way that this pulley or this adjustment screw works is, if this is loose, which this pulley, where that pulley, this arm where the pulley mounts, can rotate up and down and in and out based off of where the screw and all that is. And what that does, because you got the 2 belts coming in, that allows this pulley to adjust up and down and forward and backward as you tighten the screw in, and then you put your locking screw. So wherever this nut is set, it allows that to come in and out. So that explains kind of how that thing works. But before we get to that, the only trick is there's a nut on the back side, and so if you tighten this down too much, then it's kind of too loose. So I'm not sure. Once I get it where I want, I'm going to try to tighten it down, but for the most part, we're going to go with this as holding it in place, and then maybe I can come in from the back side and tighten that up. But what I do want to do is get the motor put back on, get the sensor for the speed controls put back on, and this plate reassembled. So we want that on the bottom side. And then this is going to go about there. Yeah. So let's get these on. we've got the mounting plate fixtured back in. We have our speed sensor put back in. This is loose and ready for adjustments as needed. You know, in and out, however we need to do. You know, if you loosen this up, we'll figure that out when we're ready for that. The next thing is to take this over, probably figure out how we can push this in without touching and messing up the bearing races. We'll push on the outer race. So that's going to be what we do next. And I think I'm going to try to use the vise and slowly push this in. I'm going to find some sockets that will fit well, and that's going to be how we're going to approach that. So this is the idea. We're going to put this in here. Maybe I'll just use one. You know what? I'm going to find a different socket. This one's too big. We're going to use these new bearings, and we're going to use a smaller socket, and we'll get these pressed in. So we want to kind of get them started. That went in way too easy, I think. But we're going to press these in because we got plenty of them to work with, and see if we can eliminate that wobble. What I fear is the pulley's bad, and if that's the case, we're in for some trouble. So what we want to do is get this started. Hopefully this is not the case, but we're going to find out. Let's see if we can push those in. They're in. I don't think I damaged them. Let's do a test fit on the lathe and see if this worked out. Let's hope that this is gonna fit okay. I'm gonna just snug this down briefly if I can. Kind of hard because of the way that is with the nut on the back. You can't get to it. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do there yet, but let's see if we can get this on here and there's no play. That's really the goal here. If there's play, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Maybe we're almost on there. There we go. So there is a little bit of play, but there's no noises. That might be the actual adjustment mechanism that's moving. Yeah. We got the bearings changed out. We're going to get everything tightened up, and we're going to see if the noises are sounding a whole lot better. We've got the pulley on there. I've got a way to adjust the idler, and now we just need to get our snap ring in. getting ahead of myself. So I got the pulley on here. I aligned it with this pulley. I got my snap ring in. I still have my adjustments so we can work with that. And I put the first belt on. And it's loose, so it was easy to go on this time. Just making sure it's lined up. And then the second belt is going to go up here. Now this is going to be, I don't drop it, this is going to be tougher to get on. And it's got to go over the small pulley, so I'm going to have to do some adjustment here. There we go. So now we've got both belts on. Nice and tight like they were before. And I think I can tighten up my screw, my adjustment screw, and then we can lock it in place. Well, it's still making noise. That's disappointing. I still think it's this pulley. I think there is when I put the back bearing, it just can fall out. It's not tight, which means this pulley is bad, and I don't know that I'm up for making that pulley. It's a complex piece. I don't think I have the skills yet to do that. I'll look and see if I can find one. I really doubt I can. But we're going to go ahead and put this thing back together. I still think this thing is vibrating or moving somehow, causing some of those noises. It shouldn't be the motor. So it could be the headstock bearings too. I don't think so. At this point, I'm going to put it all back together and use this thing. We know these bearings have been replaced. We're pretty sure the motor's good. I didn't see any problems up here in the spindle bore, but that doesn't mean there isn't a problem. But I want to get this thing put back together so I can use it and move on to some other projects, and we'll revisit this another day. At least we did kind of fix a squeak. We did change out some bearings, and we did tighten these bolts for this mounting plate. None of that's bad, and we did improve some of the gearing, the setup. So we're going to get everything put back together and give this thing a test. Get that put back where it belongs. That's good enough for now. Everything's tightened down. Let's get this side back on. I got to get these pieces put back in first. Well, everybody, we've got this put back together. My GoPro died. I got to get me a different camera. Not that it matters to you guys watching this video, but the GoPro is just not good in the heat. And it's summer. It's a peak summer. It's hot. That thing will shut off at random. It's been acting flaky, and it's really hard. You know, you're already out here trying to record what you're doing, which slows everything down, and then that dumb camera just shuts off. Not a fan of the GoPro, but it is what I have, and it's what I'm using. But someday I'll find something different. For now, let me get past that. We have the gears put back in. We have the cover put back on. Everything's put back in the way I need it to be. It's usable again. Like every other project I do around here, I think I'm going to have to revisit that again someday. It's still making some noises, but I changed the bearings. I think the pulley's bad. I'm not prepared to replace or try to remake that pulley. That's a little advanced for my skills. There's some inside, I would have to do the boring. There's a channel in there for some C-clips or, different clips to hold the bearings in. But the back bearing on that pulley would just slide in and out. It's not tight. And I think that's what's causing some of that noise. It's also possible that the headstock, the spindle bore bearings are causing an issue. I don't know. For now, I want to get my workshop put back in order so I can start making projects again. I've been messing with this for a couple weeks. It's time to get this thing spinning again. So we have it all back in. It's turned on. I don't have a chuck on there right now, but let's turn this thing on and see what it does. It doesn't sound worse, but there is still some chatter, some noises. You get it at a low speed. There's noises, but there's gears in there. There's doing all kinds of stuff. I don't know that it was ever silent. I shouldn't. Maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe I'm spoiled because I've got this Precision Matthews, which is super quiet. I don't know if you want to hear it. It's quiet. Anyway, we have that put back together. It's usable. I'll get my chuck on there. You don't need to watch me do that. And maybe I'll record a follow-up summary of this video while I'm putting that chuck on, and we can bring this thing to a close. Well, everybody, we're going to close the video out here. I just want to give you a summary where we ended up. I'm not going to put the 3-jaw on yet. I want to clean that thing up. I just want to take it apart, get the chips out of it, and then put the splash guard back on. There's no sense in doing that in this video. But in summary, I think we made some improvements to this lathe. We tore into the headstock. We didn't quite have the outcome. I was hoping for perfection, right? That's what you do when you tear into this stuff. You hope, oh, everything's great. Everything's working exactly as you hoped. Well, didn't quite have that outcome. But I do think we made some improvements. We learned a lot about this machine and how it's assembled and some of the components. Learned about the belts. We learned about the bearings. I did replace some bearings, although I think the pulley's subpar. I think there's some issues with that pulley. It rocks. It should not rock. That's a problem. I'm not ready to tackle remaking that pulley. I know there's people out there that can do that, but I'm not prepared to do that and get all the dimensions correct. It's kind of a complex component. Be nice if I could find one. I really doubt I can. You can't find anything for these. I mean, you can. Like the skateboard bearings, that's a common thing you can buy, but some of the specialty pieces are difficult to buy individually. In addition to that, we improved the squeak on the motor, put a little oil in the end. I think that took care of that. Doesn't mean that there's not a future problem. Maybe another bearing is going bad there. The mounting plate was loose. We discovered that and we fixed that. And most importantly, we learned some things and we made things a little bit better. It's not running any worse than it was. It's usable again. And I'm just ready to get on to some projects. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the in-depth look into the headstock. Maybe that will help some of you out there. If you've got a Vevor MX 200, 210, 400, and in this case 600, they got all kinds of models. They're probably all very similar on the headstock. But I hope you found it useful, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.